I think a couple of things is you don't listen to the little voices. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to, even yourself, put you down. Like, I don't know if I can do that. There's other photographers that are a little bit better than me that, can shoot that better. That's just, there's those ones that try to just push you and suppress you. As an artist, you think sometimes that you're not as good as you are, and you really, you are. You're very good. That's why people are paying for you. And so just let it go and then get back on track and reset your mind. I think that's one thing, especially with a lot of photographers around here. And then the other part is just surrounding yourself with good people, whether it's other photographers in your industry or people who complement your industry. And just someone you can get good advice from and say, hey, look, this is how I handled this client. What do you think? Give me your honest feedback. And it's a good way to kind of reset yourself.
Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, avid book reader, and developing salsa dancer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who've gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Welcome to episode 37 of the Amani Experience Podcast. For this episode, we have Nicole Leone with us. My three favorite things about this episode, I had many more than three, but the three top favorite things that I had was when Nicole was talking about collaborating with people, because you can't do this alone. So she shared some good examples and gave some good wisdom about that. She also talked about why you should share your art, because if people don't see it, they won't know how good you are. So I really appreciated when she said that. And then throughout the entire conversation, we talked many times about knowing your worth. I think that's important because many times I've known Nicole for a while. I'll always say, what would Nicole do? So I think that's something I'm glad she shared. Let's get to a review of the show. We had a review from MacPoc, who said, I'm not usually the biggest fan of interview shows, but this one is well produced and exactly the kind of thing I was looking for. Having just started multiple creative businesses of my own and helping a friend start another, I'm enthralled with this concept. Thank you much for doing what you're doing, Amani. Thank you for that review, MacPoc. You can also leave us a review. Just go on iTunes, leave a review, and I might get a chance to read it on the show. All right, it's time to get to the show. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy. Welcome back to the show. I'm going to read our guest bio, and then we'll get right to our talk. Our guest today was born in Massachusetts, but currently resides in Los Angeles. She graduated from Brooks Institute of Photography with a bachelor's degree in advertising photography. Her work is characterized by architectural, editorial, and product images for various advertising campaigns. As versatile as she is creative, our guest often has served as creative director for her clients, has worked on TV sets as a still photographer, and has had her work published in various magazines. She is an expert photo editor, retouching the majority of her own work. A consummate businesswoman, our guest surrounds herself with professionals in all areas of marketing, yet maintains a lighthearted sense of wit and humor, true, that makes for an enjoyable and effective day on set. I would like to welcome Nicole Leone to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We are happy to have you here. So we do a geographical check-in. Right now we're at our little mobile studio in Manhattan Beach, California. But where were you born and raised?
I'm originally from Newton, Massachusetts, and I grew up there until my mid-20s, and I came out to sunny California.
Yes. What motivated you to come out to sunny California?
Winter. Winter. This beautiful area has no winter. Well, up north a little bit. But, I did a cross-country trip and stayed and decided not to go back.
Oh, so you kind of came out here on a whim. I didn't know this.
Yeah. It was 4 of us ladies that traveled out, and we landed in San Diego first, and we loved it. And then I made my way to LA after school, and I've been here since 2001.
Nice. So just so the listeners know, I've known Nicole now for like 6.5, almost 7 years through BNI, and I've gotten particularly close to her the last 1.5 years. It's been awesome. You helped me out a lot personally and professionally. Gotten a lot done because we have our mastermind group. So I've been looking forward to this interview. Nicole was with me when I came up with the idea for the podcast, so she's seen it from the beginning. So I'm excited.
Yeah, this is great.
Yes. So from 2001, how did you find your way to Brooks Institute, which you got there in, I think, 2004, correct?
Yes. So I was living in San Diego at the time and decided to make a professional change. And I went back to school and did their 3-year program and interned in LA and worked with a variety of photographers in the advertising industry. And after getting my feet wet and knowing what part of the industry I wanted to be in, I moved to LA because this is where the opportunity was. And when I moved, of course, the market had sank. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
And so I had to be creative, and that's how I made my way to LA.
Nice, because that was like 2007, kind of 2008 time frame. The market
2007,
crashed.
yeah.
And then what did you do? Like, how were you creative? What did you do to kind of survive the first 2 or 3 years while we recovered economically?
Well, in the beginning, during school, I interned. And while I was interning, I ended up getting full-time, 2 part-time jobs with 2 different photographers. So it was a full-time gig working with them and then trying to build my portfolio at the same time. And then from there, when the market started to, go down, I found myself out of work. And so I worked with a photo rep, and I got to be more knowledgeable about the marketing side of it and, how other photographers were pricing themselves during the time that was really difficult. And I got to learn the other aspect of that. So I worked with her and was kind of like her right-hand woman and worked with her photographers. She had about 20 of them and did all their marketing for them, as well as shooting what I could on the side. And then after about a little over a year and a half, I made the plunge to go on my own, which was fantastic.
Yes. So before we talk about how you got the courage enough to make the plunge, how would you summarize Nicole in like 30 seconds or less?
I would summarize myself as, one, an entrepreneur, definitely, creatively an entrepreneur, as well as an artist, a businesswoman first. We all have to eat, and so you have to figure that part out. And also, I like being a mentor to a lot of other individuals who are looking to get into this field or other fields and helping them not go down the avenues that I went down, how to skip all that stuff and go in the successful route and be more successful in their business in a quicker time frame.
Good summary. Now, how did you get the courage to kind of take the leap, go out on your own, especially as the economy was kind of how did you summon the courage to go for it?
Well, I had some support from my family as well, and that's always helpful. There's always 1 or 2 people that kind of push you. And what I didn't like was when I was working for someone else, they had the control of whether I got money or not. And I didn't like the fact of not knowing, am I going to have a job tomorrow? Or am I not going to have a job and going to have to hustle to figure out how to pay rent and how to pay my bills? And so I wanted more of that control. And I didn't do it right away, but I listened and I learned from everyone around me. I took the information that was working for others and I put it in my pocket. And then slowly but surely went part-time and then went full-time in my business. And so it was basically the whole control part. I wanted to be in control of my own life and destiny.
Definitely. Now, if we were going to rewind to right when you went back to when you first started, any kind of tips or advice you would recommend to yourself now, knowing what you know now?
The one big thing I would say is not to forget that you're in control of your business. I think in the beginning, you allow others because you want that paycheck to come in to kind of dictate how your business is run. I think anyone who's starting off in a business is not only to come up with a game plan, but to know exactly who you are as a company. And once you know who you are as a company, you can always revert back to that and say, am I staying on track? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? I found myself on track for the most part, but then I would waver here and there. And I think that came up big time with money, with pay, being paid on time. As artists, we don't like to price ourselves out. It's really hard. What is your value? So knowing what your value is and coming across as this is my business. I am a photographer, but this is a business. So you sign a contract, you pay a deposit, and then you pay me when I'm done and complete the project. And there's many of us out there that when we first start off, we're not sure how much we're worth, and we'll take a lower payment without anyone even asking for that. So, so knowing your value, knowing who you are as a business, that's really important. And it changes over time. So reevaluating who you are each year is a good thing because you're going to grow. And so just kind of sticking with that and knowing those couple of tips when you first start off, it definitely will save you a lot of grief.
It will. I love to tell a story that, especially the last year and a half when I'm negotiating with a client and they're coming back, I'm like, what would Nicole say? And then I go back and I stick to my worth. So I'm glad that you talk about sticking to your worth because that's important and many people struggle with that nowadays. Mm-hmm. Kind of as a nice segue, what is important in addition for creative professionals such as yourself, myself, to succeed in today's business environment?
The biggest thing is to know is that you can't do this alone. And when I say that really specifically in regards to when I first started off, I did everything. I didn't trust anyone. And it's because it's my name on the company. And what I needed to do was I really needed to start interviewing people who I trusted and who would work well with me and slowly but surely give some of that responsibility to them, hiring people out to do stuff. And that was really important that, even if you're not hiring people, have a mentor, have someone, because this business can be really lonely. As photographers, sometimes you are a party of one quite often. And so having someone to just bounce ideas off of, it's amazing. All of a sudden you feel like you're alive again. And that was really important. And so, I would say just not doing this alone.
Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes when it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I love to share that quote. I think it's awesome. So
it's a great quote.
That's what you just reminded me of. Now, as you made your way and starting out on your own, like when did you start your own? Like 2010, 11?
2007. When I got out of school, I was just doing it part-time.
Right.
But really 2009-ish.
Okay.
It was really when I started to move forward and was more of a company and a professional.
Right. And then when was the turning point? When did you say, okay, I've arrived, this is going to work, and I'm all in?
I would say after working with the photographers and working with the photo rep, that's when all of a sudden I said, I can either hate driving to work every day and doing this. It was really I had to set myself up with reoccurring clients that would be helpful. And it was either reoccurring clients or working with a magazine that I know would hire me once a month, or just having something on the side that I knew I had something that was consistent. And so once I had something like that and had something also a little bit part-time I could fall back on, because there is that scary point where you're like, okay, sink or swim. Like, what am I going to do? And I think everyone, whether you're a photographer or you're in a different field, comes to that point where you're face-to-face with it. And so I just jumped. I jumped, and I didn't look back. And it wasn't easy, but it was the best thing I ever did.
Yes.
And
here we are, almost 10 years later,
I know, right?
Still thriving. Love it. Growing up, you played, was it lacrosse and field hockey, both or one of them?
I played lacrosse. I played field hockey. I played a number of sports, yeah.
Right. So how did your experience in sports help you when you started out your own business?
I think anyone who's a little bit competitive doesn't like to lose. So I think that's really good when it comes to business. You don't like to lose. So in business and just in general, there's a lot of small little failures, you can call them, or there's a lot of no's. As a photographer, there's thousands of us out there. And so people do shop around. And to be confident enough to say, either one, maybe I'm just not the right photographer for them, or two, this is what my value is. This is my price. And knowing and having that competitive edge of, I'm going to get this. You do have to talk to yourself. You do have to, pep yourself up, and then you learn a lot. And if you don't get it, it's okay. Learn from it. Learn either one, there was something that they needed more of, and do you want to add that into your business? Or two, it just wasn't the right client for you. And it's okay. Now you need to move on. So to be able to move on from that. So being competitive as an athlete, I think that was helpful. Because you don't want to lose the next time, and you get it the next time. So
yes. Very competitive. Good. You mentioned there are thousands of photographers. Your industry is a crowded space. How do you rise above all the competition and the noise and distinguish yourself?
I think a couple of things is you don't listen to the little voices. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to, even yourself, and put you down. Like, I don't know if I can do that. There's other photographers that are a little bit better than me that, can shoot that better. That's just, those ones that try to just push you and suppress you. As an artist, you think sometimes that you're not as good as you are, and you really, you are. You're very good. That's why people are paying for you. And so just let it go and then get back on track and reset your mind. I think that's one thing, especially with a lot of photographers around here. And then the other part is just surrounding yourself with good people, whether it's other photographers in your industry or people who complement your industry, and just someone you can get good advice from and say, hey, look, this is how I handled this client. What do you think? Give me your honest feedback. And it's a good way to kind of reset yourself. But and there's those times that come through, once a year that you kind of like, why? What's going on? You're kind of shaking your head, and you're trying to grow your business in a certain way, and for some reason you're hitting roadblocks. But for the most part, I'd say those are the two big points that I would say lead with, and then you can figure it out the rest of the way.
Yes, we can, definitely. How have you been resilient and persevered to grow your business over the past 8 or 9 years when you've run into roadblocks as you spoke of?
Don't give up. You can't give up. You can give up that day. There's times in the beginning I remember saying, like, I fired myself today. And that's okay, because sometimes you just need a break. Your company or your job will take over your life at one point. And it's really good to have balance. And if you're finding you're hitting too many roadblocks and you're not moving forward, you have to look back and say, am I giving some time to myself? Am I burning myself out? And that did happen to me because I was all about being successful and working hard, and this is what I want, and this is my goal and my dream. And I was, I was pushing forward, and my life wasn't balanced enough. And so, and so it's a big deal. It's a big deal to keep your life balanced. You and I chat about that quite often.
So tell us, how do you keep your life balanced, and share some of your wisdom with us?
Well, one thing I learned was time blocking. Time blocking was kind of my savior in a way. It was also giving me permission in my schedule to work out. And it was like that couple of hours where I'd be like, oh, I'll work out later. I'll do that later. And that later never happened. And then I was realizing I was working long days and I wasn't getting anything done because I didn't have any time for myself, and I was just burnt out. And I would hope people would hear this really well, because I burnt myself out to the point where, like, I took a time out from work and was like, I need to take a break. I'm not sure if I like what I'm doing anymore. And then once I realized how to balance my personal life with work, I was much more successful that way. I was a much happier person. And so time blocking was really important. And then taking care of yourself. You find the most successful people, doing a lot of reading, they take care of themselves right off the bat, right in the morning. They go and work out, they eat really well, they spend time with their family, or they meditate, or they do something that fills their soul. And as a photographer, I love what I do. And so it fills my soul, but it's also my work. So that was kind of hard. And so once I started taking time to do the things I wanted to do, either in the morning or sometime in the afternoon, then it allowed me to be more successful. I got things done quicker. I scheduled my time really, really well. And if a client needed me at a certain time and I was already blocked to maybe go to the gym, sorry, that time was blocked out. And I really stuck to that. And I always thought I'd lose a client, but I never did. I never lost a client. They just said, okay, great. Are you available in the afternoon at 4? Or I gave them a different option, and they were happy to take the other slot. So yeah,
Good.
It worked out well.
Now, when you say you took a time out, it wasn't like you took off work for a day or two. You took
No.
like a month or two off just to really kind of just reevaluate, correct?
Yeah, I took a good chunk off and kind of wanted to know, okay, what am I not liking about work? What do I love about it? Where do I want my business to go? How do I want to grow? And then I also creatively didn't do anything that had to do with photography. I did other stuff. I like to paint as well, but I scheduled my time during the day of just exploring and looking at other designs and work that would possibly kind of lift the fog off of what was going on. And I think a lot of people do schedule a good vacation that has to do with something else creative, and I hadn't done that in a while, and so I did an extended vacation.
You did.
But then I came back stronger, and I knew exactly what I wanted for work. I changed my business, and I got some pullback from it a little bit, but I was strong enough to say, okay, you can say whatever you want, but I'm not listening. I'm pushing forward, and that's what I did. And so I realized I was changing. My work needed to change with me, and that's what I did.
Good. I'm going to make a note here to remind Nicole to bring some of her paintings to our next mastermind meeting. I haven't seen them yet. I've been waiting, and you just reminded me, so we're going to have to do a little show and tell. Tell us, why do you love what you do?
Why do I love what I do? Because I get to bring people's visions to life in a way. I tell their story through images, or I tell a story through video, one or the other. And so someone who is just as passionate as I am about their company, they need the world to see it. And so I get to help them showcase that. The best part about it is like brainstorming with them, coming up with ideas that we could do, different angles, different people possibly to bring in that would make it even better. If I'm shooting, maybe I get a couple of the video guys that I work with in to create a commercial, and we come up with a great game plan for them. And sometimes it's a game plan for 6 months that we gradually do little bits at a time, and sometimes it's all in one week, one shoot, and it's great. But that's what I love about it. I love creating. It's never the same. It's never the same. You can have the same bike. You can have a bike company, like 4 different ones, and they all want something different, because they want to tell their story, and so we get to do that, and it's really an honor and a pleasure to be able to do. Definitely.
On the flip side, what is something that scares you?
There's not too much that scare me except for spiders, but I'm such a wimp. I think the biggest thing that would scare me is not loving what I did anymore. And that's when there's a big bell that goes off, then it's time to change. And if I didn't see that soon enough. So that would be the one thing that would scare me, is that something that's so much a part of me that wouldn't be something I'd love to do anymore. So, yeah.
Legitimate fear.
Yeah.
How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
I don't have other people might think I have a big failure, but I think failure is a hard word. I think there's small little things that don't go your way, or small little failures in my business. And I think the biggest failure that I could come up with would be how you handle money, how you handle your value and your worth. Because you can work a ton and not make any money. It's really easy. And you wonder why, some people wonder why is that photographer getting paid $1,000 and my client would only pay me $250. And so just understanding the language of money is a big thing. And that's what I learned a lot in the beginning. I always had the excuse of I was a new photographer, but I was a professional photographer. I was trained well. I worked with the best people. The quality of my work was high, just with everyone else. So I would say the little failures of money in the beginning, and then being more confident about my worth.
Okay. Is there a specific little failure that you about money that you feel comfortable sharing or that comes to mind that would be good for the listeners to hear?
Specific failure, huh?
Something specific that, they'd be like, oh, I went through that too, so I want to fix that the next time I go through that as well. I want to kind of follow Nicole's path.
I think I had a mentor actually when I was chatting with, we were chatting over breakfast, and he asked me, well, what is your pricing with everything? And we kind of went through it. And at first I was kind of vague with him, and he was like, do you not know what your pricing is? And I would tell him, it depends on the project and stuff like that. And so at one point, and this was like in the first like couple of years of working, he said, you're undervalued and you're overworked. And I wanted to be like, shut up, I am not. But he was totally right. And that was hard to be faced with it, because then it wasn't the fact that I didn't think that. It was, how do I change that now? How do I change that with the clients I already have and moving forward? And, the first time I would say what my new pricing was, and then I would just hold my breath and be like, please, God, don't ask me anything else. And it was funny. And it was, 9 times out of 10, it was okay. Or it was, okay, so what do I get with that? And it's just a little bit more information. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a good example there. Well done. How do you handle your critics? As you spoke about before, lots of photographers, some of them aren't as collaborative as others. Mm-hmm. How do you handle your critics?
I take note. I think sometimes no one's honest with you. And so if the critic is saying stuff, you take what you think could be valuable and the rest of it you throw away. It's fine. Sometimes people are critics, and I've been really lucky. I haven't had too much of this at all. It's because either someone's insecure about their own stuff, and I find that a little bit, but I haven't really had too much. I've been really lucky, and that's when surrounding yourself with good people and then having the confidence in who you are. So, but yeah, sometimes just take those notes. Some of it could be true.
Definitely.
And it could be valuable information, but the rest of the stuff you can kind of toss away and just move forward.
Good. Tell us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think the darkest time, we kind of touched upon it, was being burnt out. Being burnt out, couldn't be creative, didn't know what I was wanting to do. And that's when I turned my photography business into a creative agency. And I was excited again. Yeah. So that was really great. And I realized that my business was getting a little stale for myself. It was just, I was craving more, and I didn't realize it. And so in the midst of kind of redefining what my company was, I had the opportunity and the time to talk with other people and say, are you interested in doing this with me? Or if I was to call you and to hire you out for this part, can we collaborate together? And things got really exciting. And it felt like from party of 1 or 2 to party of like 10, which was really fun. Yeah. Especially when you're on set with a bunch of people. It's a lot more fun.
What specific things did you change with your business when you kind of relaunched or rebranded?
So I was specifically just a photographer.
Right.
And from there, I went into adding video, because a lot of my clients would ask about video, and I would always refer other people. And so adding video, whether it's commercially or it's for an event, and we're just documenting an event. But then the other part of it is I came into it as the creative director and coming up with ideas and concepts of, how we can make your video better than your competitors. And that was exciting for me. I realized that I love being a photographer, and there's specific things I love to shoot, and that's what I wanted to do. And the rest of the stuff, I really wanted to give other photographers that were amazing in that field the opportunity to shoot and to work with, which is really fun, because when you surround yourself with good people and there's good work that comes out from it, people want to work with you again. And so I think I've established that, and it keeps growing, and it's been a great ride right now. So it's been a really good transition to the point where I knew like that time off was well worth spent.
Right.
Working with others and talking with others.
Now, when you look at the future of photography and video, what do you think is coming next? Because if we go back 5 years ago, cell phone photos, and all these digital cameras were kind of hitting their peak. We didn't know what was next. Now we have people shooting movies from their phones. Like, what do you think in terms of the future for photography? What's coming next?
In terms of what's coming next, I think the biggest thing is technology. Technology is dictating what's coming next. I know there is a lot of photographers still out there, which is really fun to be able to shoot. But we also know that video is kind of where it's going as well, and to kind of merge it together and work hand in hand. A lot of photographers are shooting video at the same time, kind of switching back and forth, and I've done that. Now, with everyone having the opportunity to shoot beautiful photos and great videos, I think that's great. It brings in a lot of new talent, and it pushes professionals to be better than who they are. But I wouldn't let photographers and videographers get scared from that, because there's the whole business side of it, that the people who shoot photos on the side don't have. And so if people want to work with you, if you are a great person and have really good business skills, but if you're just someone who shoots stuff on the side, when it comes to your $40,000 campaign, they might not have the trust that they would in someone who's a professional. So I wouldn't let it scare anyone off, but I think it's a great opportunity for even like a 13-year-old to have their creative experience, to be able to showcase something that they had an idea in their head and stuff like that.
Definitely. Good answer. Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
I grew up with two strong grandmothers. Being a big Italian family, everyone lived like a block and a half away. It felt like we had like a small village. But I remember the strength of my dad's mom in terms of perseverance, and so I always kind of watched that. I was really young and was able to have the pleasure of seeing that. And then with my mom's mom, she believed heavily on have your own business. Have your own business. Don't let anyone dictate what you're going to do. You're strong enough. And so I remember her saying that a few times, and my mom's even said that, and she's picked that up from her as well. And so knowing, what those two women went through growing up, one of them came here from Italy. Well, they both did, but one was a little older, and the stuff they went through, to make a life better here for us. And they were strong women, and so I want to be just as strong as they are.
All right. Now, when you were 21, you were still back in Massachusetts, correct?
Yeah, I was.
So you were causing trouble in Massachusetts. I don't know about getting arrested, but you were causing trouble. We're going to go back and talk to 21-year-old Nicole, and we're going to give her some advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
For my 21-year-old self, I would say I should have been a little bit more focused, but who wasn't focused when they're 21?
Some people were too focused, but go on.
Yeah. I would say I wish I interned a lot, but I wish I interned more with other, didn't even have to be photographers, but just other industries, and understanding the business aspect of what was going on in their company. I became business-minded later on after starting a business, and there's some tricks and things that I wish I knew before, like everyone.
Right. Like what? What tricks?
Well, I've talked about how to price yourself. I talked about, I think the whole thing of how to present yourself as a business person, how to present your photography business as a company and as a business, and because most people think of it as a hobby.
Right.
And they want to pay you like it's a hobby, or they'll say, oh, we'll publish you. And you're like, yeah, I've been published numerous times, but thank you. And
pay me.
No.
Show me the money.
Do you know I live in California and no one gets paid on that, and we need to pay rent? So, yeah, I think being a little bit more business-minded and smarter about the way I started the business would have been a little bit more helpful, but I wouldn't go back. I'm here.
Yes.
Because of that.
Yes, so I'm happy you're here.
Yeah.
Cool. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
The one lesson in my life that took the longest to learn? I think I'm still learning.
Okay. Well, what's the one that you know is top of mind that we haven't discussed yet?
Oh, Amani. I think the biggest lesson is that it's funny. I'm 40. Oh gosh, I just said it out loud. And I find that so many creative people who are younger, and I think it's awesome, and I can't wait to see what they're doing. I think the one lesson is just because I'm 40 doesn't mean that I'm not creative and I can't learn something new and I can't push myself forward and I can't do all that stuff. No one's dried up, you know what I mean? Like you can keep pushing your passion forward. And I think a lot of people are afraid sometimes that who's going to hire me or who's going to do that, because there's a younger kid who's getting paid less and who's really creative and who's going to go out there and do it. And so I think the biggest lesson is that reminding myself that I have the experience behind me. I have the creativity and the people that I surround myself with that is valuable. It's much more valuable than someone who's just starting out or anything like that. So to remind myself that, this is the biggest lesson, and to not stop learning.
Right.
I've learned so much in the last 2 years. It's been great. Gosh, I wish I learned it when I was 21.
It's okay. For the record, 40 is very, very young.
40 is very young.
People are still playing professional sports, still having babies, still doing all sorts of things. So, 40 is very, very young. You still look like you're 25, by the way.
It is very young. It is very young. It's very young. But I met a group of photographers, and I was like, oh, boy, you guys are so young. I'm not saying how old I am, but I will mentor you.
Yes, you're still very young. Now, we are, in our mastermind group, we read books, and we're reading this book this month called The Power of Moments. Mm-hmm. And so a question that comes from that book is, if you were going to look back and maybe think about some defining moments in your life, what are the first one or two that come to mind?
Some of the defining moments was one of my biggest clients was a defining moment for me. Your palms are sweating, and you're kind of nervous, and you talk about the pricing of everything, and you get everyone together, and it brings you out of your comfort zone, not just because of the pricing, but also because of all the other elements that are pulled together with it. That also gives you that confidence of, yeah, I did it. I could do this. I can make this even bigger now. I can, get 4 trucks on this lot of people. So I think, when you have your first big client, that I think that was my biggest defining moment of I have the capacity and I can do this. And if not, I know the right people to pull together to help. And that was kind of early on.
Good answer. Nice moment. Now, every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence would be, I help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
I've always said that not my sentence, but my kind of motto is, moving your ideas forward and building your visual brand. Who are you? And when I speak with some of the people that I mentor, I always ask them, like, well, who are you? What is your visual brand? Does it identify who you are online as you are in person? And I think that's really important. It's just has nothing to do with being a photographer. It has to do with being any type of business owner. And so we always need to rebrand ourselves at some point. And sometimes as photographers, we're the last ones to do that for ourselves because we're doing it for everyone else. And so that's, I think that would be my sentence. I would say is, what is your brand? Are your ideas moving forward? And that would be it.
Through your mentoring people in the photography industry, other photographers, and just your experience, we've discussed before, you notice a lot of, specifically photographers, creatives, have a general fear of putting their work out there. Mm-hmm. If you're going to give some advice to some creatives, photographers, writers, authors, anything in terms of they have fear, they're scared of putting their work out there, what kind of advice would you give them to get over that fear?
Well, if people don't see it, they don't know who you are. And no one wants to hide. You want to be seen. This is your work. with that said, I'm not saying that your heart's not going to pound and you're not going to sweat if you put up a gallery. That's something in the back of my mind. I've always thought about doing a gallery showing of some sort of creativity. And I probably have dragged my feet on that because of that fear a little bit. But, the biggest thing is you put it out there and you just let it go. And if no one likes it, you can't say you never tried. But more than likely, people are going to love it. And it might spark an interest in something new for you. You might have a client that says, hey, I love that you did this. I'm looking for someone to do something like that, but we're looking to do it for our company. Can you come up with a creative idea for that? And so it might create another opportunity. And even if it is a semi-failure, but who says it's a failure? You or someone else who, didn't like it? I mean, I think we're really hard on ourselves and we need to be a little kinder to our souls. But yeah, I would say just do it. And if not, give it to a friend and let them do it for you. Let them put it out there.
I'm reminded when we went to go see Brendan Bouchard, and he said, can I get an amen on a Monday or whatever? So that's what I will say to that. So Keep preaching. Well done. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
One thing that's been most beneficial is the first time, like every time I wake up, I reach for my phone. Because I'm like, okay, what's going on today? Who's been emailing me? And that is so stressful. I didn't realize how stressed out I was. And you know what? Everyone takes time for themselves in the morning. And why am I not doing that? So not picking up my phone. I would wait a full hour.
Good.
And that is so uncomfortable.
Nice.
I'd be like circling for my phone. But you know what? Emails were still there. People are still waiting for me to respond back. The world wasn't ending. So doing that was one thing, is not picking up my phone. And the second part was, after you and I started the mastermind group, was reading more. And that was beneficial. It was actually getting confirmation and hearing things that I'm like, in books that I was like, oh, if this is working for them, this is what I've been thinking about, but now it's confirming and this is great. Yeah. So reading and not picking up my phone are the two.
Good. Perfect segue, because now we talk about books. All the Embodied Experience podcast, we're voracious readers. So I know we've read a lot of books lately. What's one or two or three that you think, it can be from lately or in the past, that you feel people should stop what they're doing and read them right away?
I like Tools of the Titans. It looked like a college dictionary from the old library. But it was a great book to kind of you could skim through it. And you could stop at pages that you really wanted to read. It was the chapters are very, very short. It was just little excerpts on what people have done and what works for them. And I thought that was really interesting. You could see what was repetitive and if it's repetitive, that means it's working, because everyone was successful. So I really enjoyed that. That was something that always kind of stuck in my brain, and I would go back to. The other one was I really liked the Book of Joy. Yes. That was different from anything else we have read, but it was an inspirational story between two men that had been through so much. And I think through business, we were constantly fighting. We're fighting to be seen. We're fighting to succeed. And we're always on call for that stuff. And so hearing about their fight and where they are and the peace that they have inside them, it was such a pleasant book to read. It's been something that it's a book that I've given to a couple people and suggested and saying, this might change your mindset a bit, because changing your mindset will change everything. Exactly. And so those are the two favorite ones as of right now, out of the collection of the library that we've read.
And we have a growing library, so excellent choices, definitely. Yeah. How can people find you online?
Well, there's a couple of ways. You can go to NicoleLeoneCreative.com. It'll also take you to my regular photography site as well. But there's photography and videography on there of some commercial work. And then you can find me on Instagram at Nicole Leone Photography, same thing as Facebook. And then I also am on Twitter at nleonephotog. and you can find me there. So whatever platform you enjoy the most,
this is true.
Come search.
We will add it to the show notes. So before we ask the final question, let you kind of sign off for us. Definitely want to say thank you for sitting down with me. Thank you for helping me create this podcast, because you were one of the people that helped me when I was brainstorming. It's been awesome being in the mastermind group with you. I've grown so much in the past year and a half, and a lot of it has to do with your feedback. Like I said, what would Nicole say when I'm doing the
We're going to hashtag that.
Right. We're going to hashtag, get some shirts too. Yeah. But just the way you kind of reinvigorate your business is inspiring, and then your help. So, I'm a big fan. I'm so happy that we've gotten closer. I just want to keep going because I like working with you, and we're going to work more together in the future. So yeah, just thank you. Keep working, because, it's helping me and it's helping you. So keep it up.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think it's been a great year creating this mastermind. I think if people are feeling kind of stuck, I think you and I did the best thing was to create something, a DJ and a photographer.
That's true.
But like-mindedness is the key, and we've turned our businesses around pretty well, and we're flying now.
Onward and upward.
Watch out.
That's right. We let each guest kind of sign off by giving any last-minute wisdom and advice. You've given many, many kernels of wisdom. So if there's anything else you want to add as we sign out, I'll turn the microphone over to you, and we will let you take us home.
I think that would leave you with, one, don't give up during the toughest times. Allow yourself to fire yourself for a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. But if you're starting a business, especially as a photographer, define who you are as a company and be okay with changing that in the next year. It's always good to reevaluate who you are. It's okay to put small little goals in front of you, even if it's financial goals. And the biggest thing is talk about those goals. The more you talk about your goals, the more successful you will be, because people will hold you accountable, but they'll also put the right people in front of you to help you succeed in that. People want people to succeed. They want to help. And I realized that big time when it came to changing my company and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And the first thing they would say is, who do you want to be in touch with? And it's amazing. It's amazing. The human spirit is still there. People really do care. And the last thing I would say is get yourself a mentor. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business for. The best thing you could do is get yourself a mentor that will help you succeed in wherever you want to go. And that'll be it.
Can I get an amen on a Monday? Preach on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amani.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon on our next episode.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of want to beatbox now.